now that we are getting ready to kick off our legislative session. So without further ado, Jenny, I am thankful you're here today. I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you. Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, I see by the room that many of you have been to First Tuesdays, and so some of this information will definitely be a repeat for you. Some things may be new, some ideas may be new. I just hope you take away one thing from this presentation that may just stick with you. And I feel free to ask a question if you have any as I go along the way, and otherwise we can talk about at the end. You guys may have more hints about things that work for your county. I just know my own Bexar County experience, and so sometimes it's really different in the way other counties do it. So why did I get involved? It probably isn't what you think. I didn't really know much about First Tuesdays. I didn't really know much about politics. That was before it was on every page 24/7. And I was about to be county president, and I thought to myself, well, I need to go to First Tuesdays because that's a thing that county presidents do. So that's how I ended up at my First Tuesdays. I was a little bit nervous because I thought that you had to be this, you had to be the Linda Atkins, you had to be a lobbyist, you had to know all about the bills and the legal wranglings, and that wasn't me. I was just kind of a person trying to do good things, put community outreach programs in for our alliance. And so I thought to myself, well, why should I go? I'm also not the doctor, so I can't speak to any legislation there. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the legal end of things, and I certainly don't have the political background. But what I found out after going to my first session was really, we all have what it takes. The statistics may get the issue noticed, but the story is what's going to get the vote noticed. And we all have a story. We all have a story to tell. Something that's happened in our spouse's practice, something that we notice in our community, things that we see as we're doing our outreach programs and our philanthropy, things that we see are really problems in our community. And those are the stories that our legislators need to hear. And that's what's going to get them to take action. So here are the 10 things that I thought you needed to know about First Tuesdays, whether you are, some of them will be applicable to first timers, and some of them are just delving into a little bit more detail. So 10, the Texas Legislature. There is lots to know about how our legislature works, but here's the basics. We meet 140 days in odd years only. Starts on the first Tuesday in January and runs through May. It's bicameral government, which means we have a House and a Senate. There are 150 members in the Senate. They serve 2-year terms, and the Speaker of the House is elected. I don't think we have, Pam or Linda can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's a speaker elected yet for this session. The Senate has 31 members. They serve 4-year terms. The lieutenant governor presides over the Senate, so that will be Dan Patrick. It's really important to know that the speaker and the lieutenant governor have a fair amount of power. They're the people who appoint the committees. They decide which committee that a certain bill will go to, and they certainly play a role in what bills come up for a vote. And some vocabulary, if you're not familiar with it, that you would need to know is calendars committee. That's who decides. It's just like in your family where you have 12 things. Everybody has something they want to get on the calendar because it's their important event. Libby has an event for DAR, and Steve has something else, and Declan has something else. And at some point in time, you have to decide what's the most important event. Well, the same thing happens with legislation. The calendars committee controls what comes up before the House or Senate. And sometimes as we're talking about getting legislation passed, it's not so much what's getting passed as what's not coming up on the calendar and what's not getting a hearing. So that's just a little vocabulary. Scheduling your visit. This is really different for every county. Some counties have legislative liaisons, and they do all of the scheduling. For example, in Bear County, we have a legislative liaison. She does all our appointments for us. We just show up and she says, okay, here we go at 9:10, we're going to go see Senator Gutierrez, and at 10:20, we're going somewhere else. In some counties, the CEO or the president of the medical society or somebody who's taken charge is the person who's going to schedule your visits. Sometimes it may be just as an individual. You don't have, you are coming from a county that doesn't have a strong program or doesn't have a lot of people. You don't have a lot of people going. And so you're making your own appointments. You're calling up and saying, hey, it's going to be first Tuesdays. This is when the medical community comes to visit the Capitol, and I'd like to schedule an appointment with my legislator. The one thing that we do have that's very interesting, and I would love if anybody is interested in being a part of this, is the Medical Ambassador Program. This happened because what we were seeing was, the San Antonios, the Houstons, the Dallases, they had 10 or 12 or 20 people coming to visit those legislators. And then I will tell my own story in Wilson. So we bought this piece of land. It's in Wilson County, about an hour away from San Antonio. And the first year we said, oh, well, let's go visit that legislator. Let's introduce ourselves. And we walked into the office, and I really didn't know if anybody else had already visited. And we said, hey, we're John and Jenny Shepard. We're just bought new land in Wilson County, and you're the representative there. I don't know if anybody else visited you from TMAA. And what they said was, nobody ever comes to visit us from TMA on first Tuesdays. And that's a pretty startling fact. No legislator wants to feel like they're not important. And that, so the Medical Ambassador Program, we try to take those offices that don't have scheduled visits, and we assign leaders and other people to go visit that office. It may not be with a scheduled visit, but we're definitely making a touch point for those folks so that they don't feel left out and that they get the handouts and they get the information. It may not be an official visit, but if the legislator or their staff is there and they're interested in talking, then we're present. Number 8, you don't have to be a know-it-all. For me, I thought I needed to know it all. I better get on the internet. I better study whatever issues were coming up or what was important. I have a really strong interest in certain public health issues, and so I thought I needed to study all of those. The reality is there are over 2,000 bills that come up in session that are health-related bills, and TMA follows those. We couldn't possibly do that as an individual. So we have our own lobby team. Clayton Stewart is the Vice President of Public Affairs. He's the chief lobbyist. And then there are 4 lobbyists who work underneath him. Michelle, Matt, Ben, and Caitlin. They each have different areas that they specialize in. And they follow the bills related to those items. I have to say, if you haven't introduced yourselves to these lobbyists or you haven't had a chance to talk to them, I would urge you to do so if you have the chance. And if you have a question, don't be afraid to reach out and contact them. I mean, I've had, I'm speaking from where I went back to school to get a master's in public health. And I reached out to everybody on that lobby team at one point or another and said, hey, just have this question. Now, they weren't in the middle of a session, but they were all very gracious and very helpful in helping me to understand things. So take advantage of this expertise that we have. Christine Mochizati is our political education and text pack director. And I think almost everybody on this call is a text pack member. But if you're not, I would urge you to do so. For the Alliance, $55 a year. The the way I phrase it sometimes talking about it is that we wouldn't want to go without health insurance or car insurance or life insurance. And this is sort of like a job insurance. The PAC provides, our membership in the PAC provides funds so that we can support medicine-friendly candidates. And we know that getting things done is much easier if you are already starting out with a candidate who has an open ear to the needs of medicine. So it's Tuesday. What happens? Well, first thing is the morning briefing where, and I urge everybody to arrive. Well, one, my pro tip, arrive early for breakfast tacos, but I urge you to arrive early enough, not just head straight to your appointment. The first thing that happens is the lobby staff goes through all of the really important issues. What bills are coming up? What is really important to talk to your legislators about? They give you a little bit of education, and that's where you can pick up some handouts. They're happy to take questions, but it's not really a forum for us to have a lot of conversation about the issues, but just to get questions answered so that we can do the work of First Tuesdays. The walk to the Capitol building, if you haven't done that, which I think most of you have, it's pretty impressive actually to see this huge field of white coats and spouses heading to the Capitol. It really makes a show of force. We're big in numbers. It's important that presence to say we really are. Look at, we're pretty powerful, and you really want to have us on your side. So welcome to the office. These are some common courtesy things. Arrive on time. Nobody wants, they are running a tight schedule. You need to be there on time. That's courteous for anything. Be flexible. Sometimes they're running late. Sometimes they want to meet with you in the hall. Sometimes you have too many people to fit in their office. Sometimes there are just any variety of things that are going to happen. And you need to just understand that that's just the way it goes, and you're going to need to go with the flow. Sometimes we've come into an office and they said, oh, look, we can't see you for 20 minutes. And you just have to kind of go with it and see if you can work it around your schedule, depending on what else you have booked. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to say to somebody, I'm really not sure. Can I have a lobbyist get back to you? Can I have TMA get back to you? I'm not sure, but here is our literature on this subject. It's better to do that than to give them an answer or an opinion that doesn't fit with TMA's policy or is the wrong answer. I think if Linda were on here, she would echo this: staff equals legislator. I have heard in my own contingent some grumbling sometimes when we have to talk to a staff member instead of the legislator. This is the same. And the important thing to remember is that if you are not friendly to the staff, they control that access. And I will tell you a story of how being friendly with a staff member accidentally resulted in this really great relationship with that office. I was on Facebook. It was during the time where it was pre-COVID, and one office was really dealing with some vaccine issues. And I just sent them a thank you note to the office. And the legislator didn't recognize me, but the staff did. And since that time, we have a very warm relationship. You represent medicine. Everything you say, everything you do when you're in that office, nobody's going to remember that Jenny Shepard came into that office. I mean, they might, but they're not going to remember Jenny Shepard came into the office and said something jerky, but they will associate that with medicine. So be careful what you say, be careful how you behave, because you don't want your personal behavior to reflect poorly on medicine. Not that I think any of us would, but that's just worth repeating. Have a game plan. So sometimes when you go into the office, there are, in Bear County, we have 2 medical schools here. So sometimes we've had 20 people, 25 people. We have several lead physicians. And so have a game plan about who's doing the talking, what you're presenting, what issue you want to talk about when you go into that office on that particular day. It can become overwhelming for them if you have so many people trying to tell their story, to talk about the issue. And sometimes it's okay to sit back. I mean, my first session, I don't think I said a word. I sat in the back, I took it all in, and that's okay. Your presence is important. Your number is important. Don't forget to say thank you. Thank you on the way out. And when you come back to the TMA building, there will be thank you cards. Make it a little bit personal. Thank you for seeing us is great, but thank you. I really enjoyed talking about XYZ. Wow, it was really fun to find out that we went to the same college. Make that personal connection. Medicine's priorities. So for those of you who don't know how it works, there's a Council on Legislation, and they work all year long to discuss what they think the priorities of medicine in this session will be. So it's very thought out. There's a huge committee system within TMA, Committee on Public Health, Committee on Emergency Medicine, and all of those committees work and present to the Council on Legislation, and they are then able to formulate what they think the priorities should be. I'm going to pause on this for a minute and let you read through. I'll tell you that you can find this on the TMA website, and there'll be in-depth information about each one of these 10 policies. I can answer some basic questions about some of these things if anybody has a question, but I think if you really want in-depth information, you should take advantage of the website.
Yeah, there is a really great, I guess a reporter interviewed, somebody interviewed, and he wrote up a synopsis about each of these on the TMA. So they have the one pager, but they also have that section, and it was really good. It goes much more in depth into some of the background behind some of these priorities. So definitely worth checking out the website, because that was much more information than, you know, that I could like tell other people, but it was good to know it, just reading it and really understanding. So I highly recommend that.
Okay, the internet is your friend. First of all, you can get on the Texas Legislature site, and you can find out a lot of information. You can look up information about a specific bill. You can find out who represents you if you don't know. You can find out any amount of information. The TMA website, texmed.org. I think we were just talking about that. They've got the articles that go out. They've got the legislative priorities. You can sign up for daily emails. It's got the policy statements on where TMA stands on certain things, and information and registration for TMA and TMAA text pack events. The other thing that you can find on the House site is member biographies. I personally find these to be one of the more useful things that I find on there. And for example, it allowed me to figure out what our legislators' interests are, what their interest in policy is, what they've done for a living before they became a legislator. Helps me to find some connection. When I've done fundraisers, I've often gone to these biographies to find out, well, okay, Liz Campos has 3 German Shepherds. Well, we have an instant bonding point. We both have dogs. We both have, you know, she's a 3rd generation plumber. Well, that's pretty interesting. It just helps to make a personal connection when you know a little bit about somebody. Same thing with their Facebook pages. So here is Senator Menendez's Facebook page. So I know what he's interested in doing. We can, as an alliance, we can look at that and say, oh, look, Elf Louise Christmas project. Well, maybe the alliance wants to donate something to that. Or it gives you a little bit of, you're walking into his office and you say, by the way, I saw you had that Elf Louise Christmas project. Really want to thank you for that. Same thing on Twitter. This is a great way to find out what they're feeling proud of, what they're working on, what they want to push, and a great way to just keep up with what they're doing. Social media is a really great, for me, has been a really great place to make a connection. You can retweet, comment, like, share publicly, thank. Who doesn't like to be thanked for the good work that they're doing? And so in this instance, thanks, Julie Johnson. Now, she doesn't know me, but what she does know is that I'm coming from medicine, that I'm appreciating what she's doing. It's also a way to spread the message of medicine. So talking about things that are important. For example, over on the left-hand side of the screen, I was talking about pro-vaccine and tweeting out to different things. This shows that this is pushing medicine's agenda. Now, I think that my personal opinion is you have to feel strongly about what you're putting out there too. It's not just, for me, it wasn't just this is medicine's agenda, so I'm popping something on Twitter. This was a personal passion, but it did help to just reinforce the agenda of medicine. Okay, mind your manners. So when I got married and I thought about what I'd like my mother-in-law to be, this was my dream, Barbara Bush. I just thought, wow, that would, I hope my mother-in-law is like her. She's poised and she's put together. And, I thought she'd say things to me like, hi, I just called to say hi. And what's new with you? And, may I take you to dinner sometime? What can I do for you? What can we do to, when can we get together? And I thought this would be this wonderful relationship. And so this is my reality. And this is Claire. This is my actual mother-in-law. My husband does know this picture's up here, as do his siblings. She's a narcissist, and that's just our reality. And these are the kinds of things that I get from that relationship. I need you to write me a prescription. I want you to take me out to dinner and let me tell you all about me. And so what we don't want is this. This is not a relationship. This is a one-way street. When we go in and we speak with our legislators, the way we get things done is by having these relationships with them, this ability to talk with them, the ability to discuss things with them. If we come in with a laundry list of what I need you to do for medicine is, I want you to look at this prescription drug thing. I want you to do this. We want more money for Medicaid. We want more money for Medicare. I want you to improve children's health policies. And then you walk out of their office. Well, all we did was go in and demand. That's not the relationship. We're looking for a give and take. And this is a perfect time to mention the power of the alliance when you're in there. Hey, Senator Gutierrez. Hey, Representative Campos. As members of the alliance, we have some philanthropy. We give out bicycle helmets. We do something. What do you have going on in your district that we could help you with? This is the give and take. This is the relationship. This is what forms bonds. So don't be a Claire. Have a relationship, not a one-way street. Going the extra mile. There are lots of ways that you can connect aside from First Tuesdays that help to, again, cement the relationship. Host a fundraiser. You don't think those representatives remember when you have hosted a fundraiser in your home for them? And you would be surprised. Representative Campos, we threw a fundraiser in our home for her, and she showed up about 45 minutes early. Thankfully, and this particular fundraiser, I was dressed and the food was ready. But so she and I got to sit and have a glass of wine for 45 uninterrupted minutes before people came. That was really valuable. And now we have a bond. We said, oh, let's go out for dinner sometime. Let's do this. Let's put some programs in your district. Here's what the difference in the alliance is. Here's what the TMAA is. It was just really valuable. Organized social events. So this was something that John and I were organizing for just a come and go to be social. Include them in your community outreach. Hey, we're doing a helmet giveaway. It's at X school in your district. We'd love for you to come. They love that publicity. Then put it on Twitter, put it on, put it on Facebook, put it in the news. If you can get the news to come there, that's extra publicity for them, and it cements those bonds. Number 2.
Hey, Jenny.
Yes.
Oh, I just also like to point out, and it's extra publicity for your event.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a win-win. You get information about the alliance that gets some good, it's just some goodwill all the way around. Party of Medicine, probably the most important thing that if you don't take away anything else from this information today, I want you to know that there is a number 1 rule of advocacy, and it is particularly important in this really contentious time of politics. We are about the party of medicine. We are not a Democrat. We are not a Republican when we go in to lobby for medicine. What you want to do on your own time, I am all for that. I have some very particular and strong political leanings, and sometimes I have to bite my tongue. And I remind myself that I'm working for the party of medicine now. What I do in the polling place, what I do in my time not representing medicine, when I work for a campaign or I give a fundraiser that's not for medicine, that's a whole different story. So remember, personal relationships, not personal politics when you're advocating for medicine. And I know that's, for me, that's hard sometimes. And the number 1 thing, do I really make a difference? I'm only one person. What happens if I didn't show up? What happens if I didn't come? Again, going back to my first experience, I didn't know anything about politics. I didn't know anything about the law. I know more than I thought I did. But I didn't think I had enough. I didn't think that I was going to make a difference and that my presence there was going to make a difference. And so I want to tell you my favorite story. So it starts 100 and almost 3 years ago, and women decided they needed to make a difference. They really wanted to have the vote, and they didn't. They had been working, it probably was about 100 years worth of work for women saying, we want to have the vote. It was in 1848 that they finally banded together and formally joined as a group to work towards the vote. They began meeting, they began organizing, they began protesting, they began letter writing, all the things we do as medical advocates. So here they are. It is 1920, and it was 1919. The president has put forth an amendment to give women the right to vote, but a certain number of states have to ratify that. Some do, some don't. And we get down in August of 1920, and Tennessee is the last possible state that they need before it will be ratified. All the other states that could have been the last possible vote for ratification have declined to agree to give women the right to vote. Tennessee, it was a very contentious summer for them before they took the vote. Now, like many politicians, Harry Byrne, who was the youngest politician in the state of Tennessee at the time, he was 24, and he didn't want the vote to come up. He wanted to avoid it. And he just thought, well, if we don't vote on it this session, I won't have to deal with it. I won't have to put a public vote on, because his constituents did not want him to vote for the women's right to vote. And that summer, all the suffragettes were in Nashville, and all the anti-suffrage folks were also there, and they were passing out roses. So if you were a anti-suffrage person, if you did not want women to have the right to vote, you wore a red rose. They gave you a red rose, and you wore a red rose around on your lapel all summer. The people who were voting for women's right to vote were walking around town with a yellow rose on their lapel. So the time comes, so the vote is tabled. Twice, Harry Burns votes for the vote to be tabled. And finally, the vote comes up on a third time, and it's tied. And at the last minute, Harry, who is wearing a red anti-suffrage rose, votes yes. And when asked why at the land, which won the right for women around the world or around the US to be able to vote, and when asked why he did it, he pulled out a letter from his pocket. And this is what the letter read: "Dear Harry, hurrah and vote for suffrage. Don't keep them in doubt. I've been waiting to see how you stood, but have seen nothing yet." People wanted to know who that letter was from and who had such influence over Harry that he would change his vote and give 17 million women the right to vote. Well, when he pulled it out of his pocket and he opened it up, "With lots of love, Mama." So his mother had written him, his mother was in the suffrage movement and had been wanting Harry to vote this entire time. And so it was really the power of his mother, which is strong, but it's one voice, one vote, one person. So if I don't show up, if you don't show up, if that one story we tell doesn't get told, we may lose the vote. Because if they aren't hearing our voices, they really are listening to somebody else. And that's all I have today. But I do love that story. And I do find advocacy so important. And I hope you understand that wherever you are on the advocacy spectrum, if it's the first time and you're nervous about going, or you've been there every session that you've been part of the Alliance, one, thank you. And two, you have something to offer. Anybody have any questions?
Great presentation, Jenny.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. I always get teared up when I think about Harry Burns. Think about that, the pressure he was under, and how he decided to vote for his mom, basically, and what she stood for.
You never know. You never know what's the story. You never know what's the tipping point for any one person making that vote. And